I think that's where we start victim blaming, or like the victim here would be yourself or like myself. And you would start thinking, oh, maybe if I go out that late, someone will harass me. Or maybe if I wear this, then someone will harass me. Like indirectly, you're feeding what they are giving us, like whoever is the perpetrator. I try to break from that. I used to have that a lot back home, like I shouldn't go out after a certain time because that's exactly when you will get raped or harassed or whatever. But I don't think it matters at all. I think it could happen even in daylight. It could happen like if you're wearing a burqa. I don't think it really matters.
Hola a todas y todos, ¿qué más?
Serdecznie witamy.
Ciao, come stai?
Hallo, Anisaroma Neidero.
Assalamu alaikum.
Herzlich willkommen zum Podcast Hör Idea. Sie engagiert divers kulturell.
Wir stellen euch jede Woche Powerfrauen vor. Sie selbst oder ihre Eltern sind aus der ganzen Welt nach Deutschland eingewandert.
Sie setzen sich ein für mehr Sichtbarkeit, Teilhabe und Chancengerechtigkeit.
Amina Said was 18 when the Tunisian Revolution of 2011 and the Arab Spring began. Amina was part of the protest movement against the authoritarian regime. As a student, she was also involved in university politics back in Tunisia. Amina Said, now 29 years old, graduated in Tunisia as Bachelor of Computer Science. When she came to Germany in 2016, she started working as an au pair for 1 year. After that, Amina did a voluntary social year which is called Freiwilligendienst in Germany. Now she studies gender and diversity. To finance her studies, she works as a social media content moderator in an outsourcing company. Amina is particularly interested in affairs of gender violence. She describes herself as a feminist. However, currently in Germany, Amina is not an activist because studying and being on a job takes too much of her time.
I think it's more important for me to finish my studies and get maybe a job or be free enough to focus my energy on something rather than get a lot of stuff at the same time and not focus on any of them actually. After finishing my bachelor degree, I came here to Germany and I wanted to study something else because I found that I'm more interested into humanities and social sciences. So I applied for actually international relations because I was more interested into politics. And I also applied for gender and diversity because I thought it also has some things I might be interested in. And I got accepted in gender and diversity, and that's how it started.
Her childhood and the experiences as a young woman in Tunisia influenced her mindset. Her motives of educating herself about feminism are diverse.
Coming from a North African country, you see a lot of discrimination and a lot of inequalities and a lot of injustice, so it already built something in me which is trying to make it change indirectly or trying to figure out how to change the situation, I guess, in a way. I think I've always been interested in that, especially after finishing my first studies. And I had a period of time where I was still looking for a job, and I started reading a lot of articles and stuff and seeing what's how things really are. And I saw also a lot of abuse in my own family, so that kind of triggered it, I think.
The situation in Tunisia influenced Amina's decision to come to Germany. Learning more about gender issues may help her to make a change in the future, even though studying gender and diversity in Germany is not the same as it would be in Tunisia.
Yeah, of course it's different here, and also because you see how different it is here than back home, and then you hear about how things are in Tunisia, for example, or any other Arabic country, and you start comparing. And when you start comparing, you start getting more triggered and more motivated to actually, getting deeper into the topic itself, because you notice how people are actually moved on from that, and still back home it's such a normal social norm. Like, I've always been a feminist, but like the specific topic, I think the more I started studying, because at the beginning I was just mildly interested, but the more I started studying, the more I started learning, the more I got even more interested in that. So it was like more of a gradual start than one thing that started.
While studying gender and diversity, Amina realized gender violence and inequalities just happen everywhere and every day. It is a global experience for women, also in Germany.
Reading about it, or like studying about it, and realizing that this is actually not the norm, this is not normal. In one of my classes, we had a study about nightlife, like sexual violence in the nightlife. It was very interesting because it was a lot of women's experiences in the nightlife and how to not blame the victim. And we had also a girl that was abused and like was raped, and she came and talked in our class. That was a very intense and very like big moment, I think. Like, that moment was so big for me. I think that was also one of my trigger points too.
One of Amina's uncles also lives in Germany. Amina sees that her uncle's wife has to cope with many more obstacles and fears in her life. And she is torn between Tunisian traditions and the challenge to find her way in Germany.
And my uncle has like German citizenship, and he lived here for so long before that. But his wife, she's Tunisian now, and I notice sometimes that she's having such a hard time to fit into society, and she still like has her own kind of mindset, and she expects everyone to have the same one, which is very hard. And I think she's also very scared to try anything new here. She's really boxing herself, She's like in her neighborhood, in her thing, and every time we try to push her to try something new, or to go out there to find a job, to do something, she's too scared to do that because she's afraid of how people will react to her scarf and the way she is and her values and her principles and stuff like that.
Amina thinks it is very important not to be afraid in public space. No one should prevent her from being out and active.
I think that's where we start victim blaming, or like the victim here would be yourself, or like myself. And you would start thinking, oh, maybe if I go out that late, someone will harass me. Or maybe if I wear this, then someone will harass me. Like, indirectly, you're feeding what they are giving us, like, whoever is the perpetrator. I try to break from that. I used to have that a lot back home, like I shouldn't go out after a certain time because that's exactly when you will get raped or harassed or whatever. But I don't think it matters at all. I think it could happen even in daylight. It could happen like if you're wearing a burqa. I don't think it really matters.
While studying, Amina started taking a different perspective on nightlife risks. Thinking of abuse as something which is not normal helped her to think differently about the anxieties of women and other victimized people.
I think all of that kind of just starts to give you a different perspective, or like a different point of view, because you grew up with these thoughts, or like you grew up with these beliefs indirectly, even if you not actively thinking about them, they're passively in your head. You're actually thinking about all of this. So when it's pointed out to you, like, no, this is actually not normal. No, this is actually should not happen. Then you start thinking differently, I think, at a certain point. It shouldn't be a thing that we let other people's experiences or the possibility that it might happen to stop us from living our life. We as women, like as migrant women, have to actually take these steps to be able to break the norm or like what they are expecting of us, like to do nothing, to be scared, to be all these like things that we are not actually, but they are pushing us to be.
Amina harshly experienced sexist discrimination at work. At that time, she was the only woman in her team.
I got discriminated against, but not because I was Ajnabiya, it was because I was a woman. I mean, like back home, that's obvious that it happened multiple times, directly and indirectly, because that's the culture. But here it happened at my workplace, and it happened like I was in this team and they were all men. There were like a few comments, like, oh, don't say that in front of her, she's a girl. And I was like, oh, come on, like in my head, of course. Yeah. Or don't do that, or like these little things. They told us to sit together the whole time. That's what the team leader required the whole time. So I sit there, no one's talking to me, and even if I try to make conversation with anyone, they would just like, start like whispering like next to you or something just so you don't listen because you're a girl, and like it happened so often that it drove me crazy. Yeah. In my old team or like in my current team, like usually if there's something, the whole team is gonna do it together, or like everyone that's there. But now they would like gather everyone, the guys, of course, because they were all men, and they would go do something together, go down, smoke, go up, play, think, and I'll be just the only one there. And like completely not seen, completely not, I don't know, like I've never even been there. There were like a lot of like little things that were like, like when it happens a couple of times, it's fine, but like when it happens every time you go to work, it starts like really upsetting you.
Daily discriminatory incidences bothered Amina a lot. Amina also experienced being treated differently by her team leader. She had to inform the senior team manager to change her situation.
Once I was like sick, I sent my team leader a message. I told him I'm really sick these days, and I'm just letting you know that I'm actually sick. I'm not just, sending a sick leave. And after, I think, like 2 weeks, when I was back to work, he had a meeting with me, and he was like strict and yelling and stuff, and I was just like sitting there, and that kind of made me like, I already informed you. Why are we having this conversation? And I went and talked to like the senior manager, and he told me that he also noticed it.
After her complaint, Amina's team was disbanded. She's in a different team now, and she feels much better at work. Moreover, the company has worked on its gender and diversity policy, and the company's monitoring of bullying has improved. For Amina, this subtle and everyday harassment at work was a new experience.
In Tunisia, I mean, we have a lot of problems and a lot of like sexism and a lot of discrimination and stuff, but like these kind of little things, I don't think they happen that often.
Amina noticed some changes in the German society in the last years.
What I noticed is, like I said, in the political scene, and the social movements, the anti-immigrant movement has actually grown. Like it was so little at the beginning, like I think the first 2 years I was here, and then suddenly it just got power and it's really getting bigger, and they started using every incident that happened, or like everything that, I mean, how many times you hear like a German guy did something, nobody cares, but like the moment one immigrant guy does it, then all the immigrants are bad, which is very not fair at all to the rest of us. Yeah, I think it started like 3 years ago, and it started like getting bigger and bigger.
Moreover, she is worried about the AfD, the far-right party in Germany, which is gaining strength.
Like in the recent election, they got even higher percentage, which was very insane because everyone says they're against them. Who voted for them, And I think that has a lot of implications in our daily life.
However, she criticizes a lack of representation of migrants in the German government.
To make a change, you're gonna have to be in the government. We have no presentations in the government as a minority in Germany right now. So this is like the biggest problem.
Amina is optimistic for a more diverse future in Germany. She's confident that people will be more open-minded for new immigrants.
I think it changed a lot from what, for example, the older people are used to here. So they weren't used to a lot of immigrants coming all at once, or like the amount. And now it's like starting to gradually increase. So I think at certain points, they're just gonna be more prepared for that and more welcoming, or at least more used to it if they're not gonna be welcoming, you know? I hope there will be more harmony between people and just to be accepting of each other. Like from any side, from every side. I just hope that, like, regardless of differences.
In Deutschland leben knapp 10 Millionen Frauen mit internationaler Geschichte. Insgesamt gibt es jedoch nur sehr wenige öffentliche Berichte zur weiblichen Migration.
Häufig liegt das daran, dass Migrantinnen aufgrund ihres Geschlechts und ihrer Einwanderungsgeschichte ausgeblendet werden. Genau das wollen wir ändern.
Hör-Idea entsteht im Rahmen des Projektes IDEA. Das steht für Inklusives Digitales Erinnerungsarchiv.
IDEA ist ein Kooperationsprojekt der Hochschule Furtwangen, der Katholischen Hochschule Freiburg und der Feministischen Geschichtswerkstatt Freiburg e.V. Das Projekt wird bis 2022 vom Bundesministerium für Bildung und Forschung gefördert.
Folge uns gerne auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen wie Instagram und Facebook @höridea.de und abonniere unseren Newsletter über unsere Homepage www.höridea.de, um keine Neuigkeiten mehr zu verpassen.